House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi and the chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, Ray Lujan, talked about today's midterm elections earlier this morning. This is about half an hour.
Sure. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Can we get the iPhones down, please?
I thought you were telling me.
No, my colleagues in temporary. We're just trying to keep the documents so we can see you.
You got it. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming by this morning to chat a little bit about Election Day. I'm going to jump right into this, and I'll turn it over to Leader Pelosi. So big picture points that I wanted to convey. One, I'm confident Democrats will win the majority in the U.S. House of Representatives. We've anchored our strategy this year around what is the largest battlefield that we've seen in over a decade, 111 districts across America. We're investing in over 80 districts across the country. Now, just to help with the math, that's 3 times the amount of seats that we need to win back the majority. Still, we understand that we're running in some tough districts across the country, and it's imperative that everyone across the country still turn out to vote today. This morning has been encouraging. We're seeing long lines all across America, people waiting to vote. The rain is not scaring anyone away, and so we want to encourage people to continue to turn out to the polls. Also wanted to give you a little background on some of the work that we have done, namely on owning the ground across America. The DCCC began investing in local organizers in targeted districts in February of 2017. You'll remember 4 days after the Women's March, we had organizers in over 20 Republican-held districts, and that continued to grow across America. But I want to share with you some eye-popping polling numbers, if you will, pertaining to measurements with what our ground has meant. Total voter conversations, 32 million across America, 8 million conversations specifically with voters of color. And this is all in our battlefield. Trained over 2,500 organizers that are currently deployed. We actually trained over 15,000 people across America with our national training initiatives, which began in December of 2016. We've had 120,000 GOTV shifts across America, 26 million doors knocked, 30 million calls made. That's been part of our $30 million investment with our voter engagement program. The DCCC's invested in our largest voter registration initiative to date. 8.4 million votes have already been cast in 2018 compared to just 3.9 million votes cast at this time in 2014. Again, 113% increase in our battlefield. Now, we've seen exciting voter increases. There's been a lot to talk about when it comes to communities of color and millennials with voter participation with early voting. In our battlefield, we've seen 180% increase in Hispanic turnout compared to 2014. 136% increase when it comes to African American voters compared to 2014. With Asian American voters, a 345% increase over 2014. And with millennials, a 261% increase over 2014. Now, we've raised considerable resources. Leader Pelosi, as we all know, has been traveling the country working with supporters across America, but we also made some substantial investments in online voting initiatives across America beginning in December and November of 2016. The team's raised more than $270 million to date, $105 million coming from online donors. When you combine our mail program and our online program, that makes up for about 58% of the donors across the country with an average contribution of $19. We built the largest battlefield in a decade, as I highlighted earlier. And here's just something to observe as we go in through the rest of the day. We forced Republicans to spend deep in their map to defend seats. As a matter of fact, you saw a shift with money being taken out of races like Alyssa Slotkin's district in Michigan, and the dollars being moved to defend Fred Upton in Michigan 6th, and moving over to North Carolina too. Even having to spend in the closing days in Alaska to defend Don Young's seat. And just as shockingly, Republicans cut off incumbents. Early on, the NRCC cut money from Kaufman out in the 6th District of Colorado, as well as Kevin Yoder in the 3rd District of Kansas, and they moved $1.5 million over to defend a seat that Secretary Clinton won by over 20%, with over 20 points down in Florida, 27. So look, the battlefield grew from the beginning, 59 districts in 2017, all the way to 111 by June of 2018. We're going to continue to be aggressive in all that we do, and here's the proof. We've invested in over 85 districts, as I said, to begin with. Female candidates, over $63 million of investment from the DCCC this year. Candidates of color, over $39 million of investments in those races. Veteran candidates, over $25 million of investments as well as we close out. And just remember this as I turn this over to Leader Pelosi. Defining the Republicans' attack on the repeal of the Affordable Care Act began in the House, and our caucus stood strong. Also defining the Republican tax scam, that began in the House. And we're continuing to see how our candidates have been standing so strong across America. And I've been very proud to be able to work with our colleagues in this endeavor. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Leader Pelosi and look forward to the questions. Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your extraordinary leadership. What you have presented in a short period of time is fraught with so much work and leadership, whether it's on the mobilization at the grassroots level, whether it's the messaging with our For the People, lower health care costs, bigger paychecks, cleaner government, whether it's also about bringing more integrity back to politics and government. And the grassroots fundraising effort that is growing is just taking us into a future, crossing a threshold of citizen participation in government, both from the standpoint of mobilization and the standpoint of money and the standpoint of messaging. Your management, that's alliterative, all these M's, that your management of it all is just a tour de force. I congratulate you on that, and our success today will be a reflection of the meticulous leadership that you have demonstrated. And you ended on the note of health care. This is the issue that is on the ballot. This election is about health care. As the chairman indicated, Congressional Democrats created our own environment on this issue because it is so important, the health issue, to not only the health, but also the financial security of America's working families. The day after the election, 2 years ago, that would be 2 years from tomorrow, we didn't agonize, we organized. We went right to work in saying, how do we preserve the Affordable Care Act from the assault we know it will receive? By that Sunday, all of the grassroots mobilizing organizations were on the phone with us. Whatever our point of view on other issues, we understood that we had to work together to save the Affordable Care Act. At that time, we made a plan that would be launched on Martin Luther King weekend. It was, and then a couple of days later, the president is inaugurated. Day after that, the Women's March, much of it about health care, women's health, reproductive health, and the rest. So just continuing that drumbeat. Over the course of the next 18 months, the Congressional Democrats, House and Senate, voted time and time again, 100% in the House against the president, Trump care, or Trump I don't care, whatever you want to label that. Over and over again, 100% against the tax scam, a tax scam that did serious damage to the Affordable Care Act, and that they're using as a basis to eliminate the pre-existing condition benefit. It's shameful. What's shameful about it is they're going around the country misrepresenting and presenting falsehoods that they're really there for the pre-existing condition, when in fact they have the case against it. The Republican attorneys general are making the case against it, and the administration is joining them in that lawsuit. So again, what's on the ballot is the good health of the American people, and that means also their financial health as well. Don't take it from me. Just look at what Mitch McConnell said. Mitch McConnell said that Medicare were on the chopping block. So if you take the increase in premiums springing from the Trump assault on the Affordable Care Act, if you take his refusal to insist that the Secretary negotiate for lower prescription drug prices, if you take their assault on Medicare and Medicaid, if you take their assault on, again, the pre-existing condition, the list goes on. And it's not just in legislation that relates to health directly, but in the tax scam, which did serious damage to the individual mandate. So more than you might want to know on the subject, but that is what is on the ballot. So I'm very happy to salute congressional Democrats, House and Senate, for making our own environment on this issue. Some of you have asked me, how come health care has emerged as such a big issue? We made our own environment to make sure people knew the difference between Democrats and Republicans on this subject and what was at stake for them in their health and financial well-being. In addition to that, I want to salute the outside groups. Without the outside mobilization, our inside maneuvering would not have been as effective. But all of the groups that you can imagine, HCAN, Protect Our Care, the list goes on, some specifically to health care, others in coalition on the health care issue because of a fairness and a values issue for us. The outside groups were, well, let me just put it in numbers, as the chairman has, 10,000 events to protect our care in the course of the time that this debate was going on and during the Trump attempts to undermine the good health of the American people. So 10,000 events, people telling their stories. The statistics are staggering, but the stories are eloquent and convincing. And that helped to preserve certain elements of the Affordable Care Act as well as the Affordable Care Act itself. It still stands, and that is on the ballot. Your health, the American people's health is on the ballot. So what are Democrats for? That's on the ballot. We are for the people. Lowering health care costs by reducing the cost of prescription drugs, bigger paychecks by building the infrastructure of America, and again, bringing integrity to government by reducing the role of big, dark money in politics, instead going to a place that rewards and recognizes the role of small donors to our party. We have legislative proposals for all of that, but that is our for the people agenda. And when we win, and the chairman has said we will win, and I agree with that, when we win on the opening day, our Democratic Congress will be open and transparent so people can see the impact of legislation on their lives and weigh in on the decisions. It will strive for bipartisanship because we have a responsibility to find common ground where we can, stand our ground where we can't, but we have to try. And it will honor the vows of our founders. Their guidance was e pluribus unum, from many one. From many one. We couldn't imagine how many we would be or how different we'd be from each other, but they knew we had to strive for oneness. So when we talk about the health care bill, we always talk about our founders in the Declaration saying life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those were their goals, they're our goals. But we also not only have to be inspired by those values, we have to follow their guidance, e pluribus unum, from any one. So our priorities we will address will be those that strive to bring people together and not to divide. And in this election, the drumbeat that you hear across America is about people voting, the echo chamber of people voting all over the country to weigh in. Martin Luther King said, the ballot, legislation, your life. See the relationship with what happens at the ballot box, what happens in legislation, and how it affects you. People are seeing that more clearly. I do think that it's important to note that the integrity of elections is, I'm going to defer to the chairman to talk about what we're doing there, but because we have concerns about it, does not mean that people shouldn't go out there and vote. Do not let their scare tactics frighten you away from the polls. It's a technique, but it's not something that our founders would approve of. And with that, I'm going to defer back with great appreciation to our chairman to talk about the integrity of the elections and what we're doing about it.
What I would just add about that as we open this up to questions as well is, one, we have a robust legal strategy associated with making sure that we're protecting the integrity of the voting process all across America. And just remember this, America's always embraced peaceful transition of power. And that is not going to change. So I'm confident not just with the work that we are doing, but what we're hearing from allied organizations across America with the goal of making sure that we're ensuring that every vote will be counted and that we will protect the integrity of the process. So with that, Meredith, did you want to open this up?
We have time for a few questions.
Speaker, I'm sorry, Leader. Could I ask you, you seem to express a great deal of confidence, not repeatedly saying when you win, when you win. Are you 100% sure of victory tonight in your mind?
Yes, I am, and let me just say why. As I travel across the country, I listen to the VIPs, the volunteers in politics, all the people who are knocking on doors, making calls and the rest. And I say to them, every step you take, every door you knock, every call you make, every sign you plant, every postcard you send, all of that can make the difference. Because these are individual races will be close. And the outpouring of mobilization by various groups, all working together, springs from the quality of our candidates. They're inspired by our candidates, and that's why they're getting out to vote. And our candidates know their why. They know why they are running. They know what they care about and can speak to it. They know how to communicate with the constituents as to how to represent them authentically. And again, the quality of our candidates, and thank you for the tremendous recruitment. Now, some of these people self-recruited, but the path to victory is something that we work together on. So because of the quality of our candidates, which inspires a tremendous grassroots operation, and you heard the chairman's statistics, I feel confident that we will win. It's just a question of what the size of the victory is. Now, when people ask me, how is it a wave or a tsunami, I said all of those are drops of water. These races are very close across the country. Our chairman has said that the whole election could go on 25,000 votes, 500 here, 600 here. So that's why I say every step you take, every call you make. And it will be many drops of water. How many? A victory. How many more? A wave. How many more? A tsunami.
Should the administration fear Democratic control of the House? Should the president fear anything that the Democrats will do if they get control of the House?
Well, do you want him to have a second question? I mean, that's up to you.
Well, with that confidence in mind, what would you say? People are going to be voting the other way. What is your message to the people who don't come out to vote Democratic, vote the other way? How do you reconcile running the country with that?
As I said, and maybe I wasn't as clear as I should have been, we are not going after the Republicans the way they went after us. We are not they. We are the Democrats, and the Democrats will have an open, transparent Congress that will strive for bipartisanship and that will honor the vows of our founders to strive for unity. And that is our message to them. We respect everyone who votes because that's a responsibility everyone has. I respect my colleagues and the people who voted for them, but the fact is that in their interest, in the interest of everyone participating in the full prosperity of our country, we have to win this election.
Leader Pelosi, if you were to win the majority, what would be the actual first legislative priority that you would have? And secondarily, are you at all concerned because of the rhetoric of this campaign in dealing with President Trump? I mean, what are your concerns with having a majority and also dealing with a president who has been relentless in going against you and dividing the country against you?
Before I answer that, I want to defer to my chairman for the previous question. Did you have anything you wanted to say on that, Mr. Chairman?
I would just simply remind everyone of what our colleagues have committed to. We have been very clear with the American people, as have our candidates, that coming out of 2018, if we're fortunate to hold the majority, which I believe and know we will move very aggressively on lowering the cost of healthcare and prescription drug prices, a robust infrastructure package, and cleaning up Washington, D.C. when it comes to outside money, gerrymandering, and more disclosure and transparency. Now, each and every one of those areas is something that I must believe, and I do believe that we can work on a bipartisan basis. So I'm looking forward to seeing how, in the majority, our Democratic leaders will be able to work and reach across the aisle and bring the country together as well as bring the Congress together.
We understand our responsibility to the institution we serve in. After the beautiful preamble to the Constitution, Article 1, the legislative branch, the first branch of government, co-equal to the other branches, a check on other branches. So one of the items that's on the agenda is checks and balances in our system. That was the beauty of the Constitution. The transparency that I mentioned and the openness, I think, will enable us to succeed in a bipartisan way, because the public will see what is at stake for them in any legislation. Contrary to a tax bill that affects trillions of dollars in our economy that was in the dark of night, speed of light, no hearings or anything like that, just to make the contrast. So we did this when we passed the Affordable Care Act. Hundreds of amendments, hours of hearings, public hearings, and the rest. So in any event, in terms of the president, I think that communicating with him is probably best done by way of the public. As President Lincoln said, public sentiment is everything. With it, you can accomplish almost anything. Without it, practically nothing. And so, obviously, we respect the office that he holds. We respect the offices that we hold. And we want the public to weigh in on these decisions. So I do believe that, again, as the chairman spelled out, our For the People agenda about health care and jobs and integrity in government as a predicate. Let me just say this, and this is one thing we're hearing from all the groups around the country. When people believe that there will be integrity in government, that you reduce the role of dark special interest money, that everyone's voice will be heard and not weigh heavily, and that, of course, if they believe then that we can make a difference, that we can pass gun safety because we're not dominated by the NRA, that we can pass environmental protections because we're not dominated by any industry money in that regard. It caffeinates everything else that we do. People believe that their interest will be served, the people's interest will be served, and not the special interest being served.
Okay, let's go to Dan.
Hi there. You said you're 100% confident that you'll win the majority tonight. You were also, I would imagine, 100% confident that Hillary Clinton was going to be president 2 years ago. So I'm wondering if you've entertained the idea that Democrats won't take the majority, and how you've reconciled that.
Well, I think there are two different elections. This is a presidential election, which Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote, I remind, but she didn't win the White House, and I didn't think she would win. I knew she was going to win, as just as Dan indicated. This is different, that we are one district at a time. This is very discreet, and we're making a judgment about one district at a time, where really the popular vote rules. It doesn't have to be subjected to the Electoral College. The popular vote rules. And so I feel very, very confident. And one other point, just for you, when I'm listening to the grassroots people around the country, our VIPs, they say it's different from before. There's no ambiguity. Democrats are going out to vote. They're not saying, well, one thing, no ambiguity. They're going out to vote. They're even winning over some independents in all of this. They even think they're winning Republicans. I wouldn't take that to the bank, but I do think that that anecdotally people are hearing from Republicans that they're going to vote Democratic for the first time. But I'm not counting on that.
Have you personally entertained that idea, though? The idea that the Democrats might not win?
Well, we start with one vote. You know, we start with our definite districts, and we add one district at a time. We don't assume from the start that we've won, now let's cut back. We start one district at a time. And I 1 week ago, I first said, but you said before me, 2 days before me, we're going to win based on data.
Let me just give you a couple of proof points as well in some of the swing districts across America. So I got these numbers right before I came down. What's normal is 50 to 80,000 doors knocked in GOTV weekend, including Election Day. So just remember that the numbers I'm going to give you do not include Election Day. 50 to 80,000 is normal. Illinois 6 in Sean Castan's district, 100,000 doors knocked already, not including the Election Day through GOTV weekend. Texas 32, 105,000 doors. New Jersey 7, 120,000 doors. Maine 2, 104,000 doors. New York 19, 175,000 doors. Virginia 7, 131,000 doors. California 25, 200,000 doors. California 10, 200,000 doors. So when we see the level of participation across America, it is encouraging. Max Rose on Staten Island had so many volunteers that they lined up across the island, almost one person per door that needed to be knocked on Saturday morning. So that's the enthusiasm that we're seeing. The grassroots participation starting from the Women's March. No one suggested that that energy would continue even through the week, through the month, through the summer. And we've continued to see people gather across the country. And that's the energy that we're seeing and the confidence that both the leader and I have in Democrats securing the majority in the U.S. House of Representatives.
And then I just want to add our young people marching for their lives now, voting for their lives on all of this. This is something that is more than this election. It's not about Democrats and Republicans. It's about the United States of America. It's about honoring the vows of our founders and what they sacrificed so much for in their vision. It's about honoring the sacrifice of our men and women in uniform to protect our freedom, make us the land of the free and home of the brave. It's about the aspirations of our children, and people know that. And they're getting out there. Now, I just want to add some of the anecdotal, as I say, the plural of anecdote is not data, but it's illustrative, that some of the campaigns have reported to me the last couple of days, and I'm sure to the chairman as well, that they have so many volunteers, and they do not, you never want to turn a volunteer away, that they're double teaming, and across the country. So the enthusiasm that people have, again, not agonizing but organizing, is going to produce the victory.
You can do the last question.
Thank you. Leader Pelosi, if Democrats win the House today, are you confident that you will be Speaker, and does that hinge at all on the results of today?
I'm not going to answer any questions. We'll talk tomorrow. But right now, today, every second is about winning this election, and that's what's important. Thank you.
I think we're done.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. See you later.
Thank you. Thank you for asking that question.
Thank you, Leader.
Oh,
Well, so the leader asked me to make sure that you all understood what was in front of me here. So this is the battlefield, as you can imagine. And so what we have here is essentially, I don't know if you can see these panned out. These are the districts that we're playing in across America. Every one of these has a path to victory in every district across the country, what performance is, what investments have been, and how we're able to get this done.
Every given page is
how many districts?
So there's 111 districts in this binder. There's over 85 that we've invested in now. And as you look into, I can't give away my playbook so that Steve takes a peek here, because we're still a few hours away from these polls closing. But just so you get an idea of the kind of work that we're doing. This binder has not been this thick in over a decade. And there's a reason why I'm confident that our strategy, which was built on many paths to the majority, was the right decision. And again, in investing over 3 times the number of districts that we need to secure the majority is why I believe we will win. And again, don't forget about our candidates. This strategy was built and anchored around our candidates. Records of service, so many that have served in the military, now veterans, former CIA officers, FBI agents, prosecutors, all records of service across America. And you look at the failed Republican playbook, they don't know how to run ads or how to run a campaign against our candidates. It's why they're running these slanderous ads across America, but our candidates are connecting in a very inspiring way. And that's why I have so much belief and hope in what's going to be accomplished tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that presentation of this book. This is the playbook. It's not the game plan. After the election, I think that people, if they read these pages, you will see a game plan for success. So again,
so we brought it in here. You all could have taken a look at it before I got here, but not now that I'm leaving. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming out today.
Over there.